Welcome back to Talking Insights. I'm your host, Antonio, and today we're diving into one of the most important skills for anyone working with insights, storytelling. Because no matter how good your data is, it only makes an impact if you can communicate it clearly, memorably, and in a way that makes people move fast and act on it. Joining me is Daniel Wain. He's doing an upcoming SMR Academy training called Hook, Line, and Tinker. It's a highly practical workshop that helps everyone craft compelling research stories that truly land with their audiences. We're going to explore a bit how storytelling is so vital on this industry and unveil a bit about the training itself. So, without further ado, here's Daniel. Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much for your time and thanks so much for being here at the Talking Insights podcast. I wanted to start by asking a bit more about your background and well, the idea is to talk about the Hook, Line, and Tinker workshop. We'll talk about it, but I wanted to talk about your background and what led you to design this workshop and this training for the SMR Academy.
Okay, right. Well, very nice to be here. Thank you very much, Antonio. My background is as a researcher. So I think this year I celebrate, if that's the right word, my 35th anniversary within the research insight business world. I started as a researcher. I moved into business development, basically selling research to client-side insight teams. And then I moved into learning and development. So my last proper salaried position was as worldwide director of learning and development for an organization called Research International, which some people may have heard of. If they haven't, as the name implies, it was a big international research agency. I left 18 years ago. I set up as a freelance L&D consultant, trainer, coach, conference speaker, journalist, theatre producer, basically whatever pays the bills. And I think that this whole area around communication, effective communication, is just fundamental. I think that in the research world, it's a people business. It's about human beings connecting. It's about human beings listening to each other and understanding. I mean, every time that we deliver a research presentation or a debrief, we're looking to have an impact. We're looking to get some kind of response to spur the listeners, the audience to action, to make decisions. And for me, I think that this becomes even more challenging in what I would call the age of infobesity. Yeah, where we are increasingly bombarded with stuff. You know, we have more and more information, knowledge, data being thrown at us, and it seems less and less time in which to process it. So I think being heard, cutting through, having our message land, it's always been an issue. 35 years ago, it was an issue. But I think it becomes even more important today when we are fighting against so many other demands on our clients, our stakeholders' time. So I'd always be thinking, why should my audience listen to me? Why should they spend some of their increasingly limited amount of time with me? And to be honest, I mean, I wasn't joking when I said I'm a theatre producer and a journalist. I do a lot of writing. I'm a professional actor. So much of the different sort of facets of my life are all about communication and connection. And I think that the research world could and should learn a lot from other good, effective storytellers like journalists, like playwrights, like novelists.
It's very interesting because it's a topic that we kind of been discussing on this podcast actually, about these soft skills that sometimes people in the industry kind of lack, and the communications, the way for you to express yourself. Sometimes you're very good at being a researcher, but you lack some other skills, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, I specialize in what are usually called the soft skills. And I personally think that's a misnomer, because I think they tend to be the harder skills, to acquire and to master. And I do think that the research world traditionally focuses very much on the technical, methodological stuff. We're all talking about AI at the moment. And for me, those softer skills, those communication, relationship based skills are just as important, but I think quite often neglected.
Exactly. And can I ask, and I guess that's where the thinker part of the title comes to, right? Like you need to be a thinker, you need to think about what you're going to say and the way to communicate. Is that how it,
Yeah.
is that how you like effectively craft a story?
Yeah, well, I think, yeah, absolutely, because we all know that good stories have a beginning, middle, and end. I always think of it in terms of a hook, a line, and a thinker. So the line is my very clear narrative structure, the flow, the journey, if you like, that I'm going to take my audience on. And then for me, the two most important elements are firstly the hook. So that's my best shot to grab their attention. In this age of infobesity, to get them to stop, to get them to spend time with me, to maybe pique their curiosity, to right up front sell the benefit to them of investing some time and energy with me. And then I think probably the most important element, yeah, is the thinker. Because for me, the thinker is, what do I want my audience to take away? What do I want them to do? I mean, I always talk about passing the elevator test, but, by which I mean it doesn't matter how long my story was. It doesn't matter what the medium was, the format. When my audience have heard it, they should be able to close the laptop, leave the room, bump into a colleague in the elevator, and in no more than 2 minutes, fundamentally summarize, this is what we've heard, this is what it means for us, this is what we do with it. So you leave people thinking differently, being able to act, make decisions, take actions, maybe get people feeling differently.
That's, yeah, exactly. And it's interesting that you mentioned AI and the new technology, all these new tools that nowadays everyone talks about, especially in the market research
Yeah.
industry. Like everyone's talking about like the new shiny thing. Are there like any tools or new technologies, or I mean, I guess AI, that you can use on the workshop, but also on creating these new stories and crafting like good stories for your work?
Yeah, I mean, I focus very much upon, the tools and the techniques that people can steal from good storytellers. Also, from lawyers, advocates in court, and what we learn from advertisers. I mean, I think good effective communicators, they steal. They steal from people that are good, that are effective. And so for me, a large part of the program is around the tools, the techniques, the skills, the tips, the tricks of effective communicators. I don't have any problem with people using AI, for example, to synthesize data, to summarize the data. But what I think is fundamental, and I don't think we should ever lose, is that human connection. Because one of the things that I love about stories is that, all human beings, regardless of geography, culture, era, we've always been instinctively engaged by and interested in stories because, they're memorable, they're portable, they're actionable. And for me, I think, yeah, use AI by all means to help, maybe to make your life easier in marshalling and analyzing the data. But ultimately, what I think is important, and it goes back to the softer skills, what I think is important is that human connection. One bit of flesh and blood, talking with and understanding and strengthening the relationship with another bit of flesh and blood. And I think also another thing that I would always say is, when we're communicating, say a research debrief, we're not communicating data. I think we're communicating humanity. We're trying to get, our audience, our clients, our stakeholders to understand and empathize with their consumers, their customers. And so for me, what's really important is to always maintain and leverage that human connection. And yeah, use AI as a means to an end. But ultimately, it's about human beings connecting, engaging, understanding, and empathizing with each other.
And I can say like empathy sometimes it's the most difficult thing for you to create, like to create a story that has that empathy, that has that human connection. That's the harder part, I think, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
need to.
absolutely. And it's why I think any good piece of communication has to be receiver centric. So I would always be thinking I'm only so much important insofar as I'm a conduit, a channel for the message. But ultimately, it's about my audience. It's about giving them something of benefit and value, answering their questions, solving their problems. And therefore, I think it's crucial to know your audience. You've got to understand them, you've got to empathize with them. I think for me, clarity is fundamental in communication. It's having clarity as to my message. What am I trying to say? It's maybe having clarity as to my purpose. Why am I saying it? Because there's no point communicating for no reason. So it's what do I want them to know? What do I think they should do? How do I want them to be thinking and feeling? But also what has to be paramount is who are they? And I think, any good piece of communication, I show my audience that I do understand them. I do empathize with them. I have identified, what their priorities are, what their questions are, what their needs are.
Yeah, that's great. So this training, it's gonna be in September, 2 days.
Yes.
It's
The
all
16th and
virtual.
the 7th. Yes.
It's available to everyone. I know that people can register through the SMR Academy. The link will be in the description, but I can imagine that there's going to be like some interaction. There's always I've looked into some of these trainings. Like there's always some part of interaction. People really enjoy what they learn from it and what they learn from your previous trainings, from previous trainings from other people, and it's always like a share thing. It's
Yeah.
always like you give and also collect, so people, I feel like the trainers also get something new from them and for
Yeah,
giving
no,
the trainers, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think the first thing I'd say is, there are two sort of bite-sized sessions. So each session is 3 hours, and we'll be taking a break, a comfort break halfway through each. So hopefully we'll avoid too much sort of information overload. But also it would be quite ironic if I was just delivering sort of, transmitting a monologue. So we will be trying to make it as interactive as possible. And to be honest, I think, Antonio, it'll be as interactive as the audience want it to be. So, I'll be inviting people to place questions in the chat. I'll be putting people into breakout groups to get them to discuss what we've talked about and to feedback what their takeouts are, any questions they have. Maybe most importantly, getting some kind of response in terms of what people have not just taken away, but what they're actually going to do with the session. So, yeah, it'll be interactive. It'll certainly be very practical and pragmatic. It's all about giving people tools that they can go away, put into practice that will make a difference and hopefully a positive difference.
That's always what we want. Daniel, I have one last question that I always ask
Mm.
everyone is you've been you've been in the market research industry for quite a while. You've worked in all these different projects and all these different roles. I mean, theater and writer and journalist and everything. If you could give like one advice, not only for the CEOs, top branch managers, but also for the newcomers, because we have a lot of people that are just fresh out of university that are listening to this. Yeah, if you have like one advice for all of them, what that advice would be.
Think for me, it would be that research is a people business. Never forget it's about people. Having worked on the agency side a lot, having sold research, I genuinely believe that people buy people. People buy people who they respect, they trust, who make them feel good, who make them look smart, who make their lives easier, who maybe make their lives more enjoyable. People are the sole source of any product, any profit within the research world. And as I say, I think, we are all about connecting humanity. And I think, regardless of technological advances, I would never forget it's about the people. And it's about people connecting, engaging, strengthening the trust, developing the relationships, and therefore, hopefully, having positive difference.
That's great. Daniel, thank you so much for your time. Good luck preparing for the live training and
Thank you.
for everything that's
I'm
coming
looking
up.
forward to it.
The registration the registration for the training Hook, Line, and Thinker is open and available on the link in the description and also on the SMR Academy. Go on the website, click the link on the bio. Daniel, thanks again. Yeah. Register, go. It's a great thank you so much, everybody,
I
and
look
thank you,
forward to
Daniel.
seeing people there. And thanks ever so much, Antonio. Cheers.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.